Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. This is Boxing's Psychology with myself, Hugh Mayers. Boxing analysis. Big fight coming up on Saturday, this weekend, between Anthony Joshua, aka AJ, and aka Triple D, Daniel Dubois, the IBF champion, heavyweight champion of the world. Anthony Joshua is seen as a favorite, former two-time unified champion, 28 wins, 3 losses, 24 KOs, hailing from Watford, Hertfordshire, with a 77% knockout ratio, fighting against a somewhat relatively inexperienced Daniel Dubois, with his 21 wins, 2 losses, 19 KOs, hailing from Greenwich, 83% knockout ratio. And we say 2 losses, but that's a matter of controversy, right? Because there's an argument that he beat Usyk by scoring a knockout blow, a body shot, and would have been crowned champion had the call been made correctly. However, boxing doesn't really work like that. When there's 50-50 calls and it goes against the challenger, it goes against the challenger. You know, maybe if he had stayed on his feet, his claim to being champion would have looked a little bit better. But the fact that he quit and took the knee a few rounds later, it doesn't really bode well. And also, we did see a fight, without being hypercritical towards the young champion. We did see a fight when he was on his comeback trail from Joyce. I can't recall the name of the southpaw that he fought, but he did take the knee. He did take 3 counts in one round, and one of the counts was not given as a count. So that was a very suspicious win. It was like, okay, you're the home fighter, you know, and you got like a bit of a home. Home decision that got him out of jail, and then he won by KO a few rounds later. So, you know, it is what it is. Swings and roundabouts, right? But yeah, this should be a very intriguing matchup, and Daniel's in a very, you could say, good state of form after his beating up of Baby Miller and Flip Ergovich. I only heard about that guy as some boogeyman, but he didn't really seem all that. And Big Baby Miller was a tub of lard, to be frank with you. He wasn't in any kind of shape that he should have really been able to pass a medical and signed off to fight in a professional boxing match. That was quite dangerous. The amount of body fat that he was carrying, and he just looked like he was in no condition. They say it was a short training camp. He got called up on short notice. So again, that might be a win that flatters. But, you know, there's arguments to say that AJ is being flattered by his recent form because, you know, his knockout win over Francis Ngannou, spectacular as it looked, sensational as it looked, good marketing ploy, right, was against a cage fighter. And there are those that say, regardless of, you know, Ngannou giving Tyson Fury such a difficult fight, in all honesty, that's how a boxer is supposed to make mincemeat out of a cage fighter when he's not in a cage. And also the win against Otto Wallins, again, looked sensational. You know, perfect punching power display. But, you know, the argument is that it's a guy that he sparred with many times, beating the amateurs, and that there was no real danger. But, you know, it is what it is. The records are recent records say one thing. But if you look at if they were horses, you'd have to look at the pedigree, right? And the championships that they've won and the championships fights they've been in. And in terms of world title experience, Daniel Dubois hasn't got any. And if you put that to the side about him not having any experience, he has youth, he has punching power, he has grit, and he has determination. I'm going to put that with a question mark because I'll come back to that. Put a little asterisk next to his grit and determination. He showed it in his last couple of fights. However, I think AJ is proved that he is, in terms of technique, he's a superior boxer, higher boxing IQ, higher punch variety, probably the better athlete. Not sure if he's got the better engine, but overall he's a better specimen, and precise and correct puncher. Not rabbit puncher, not thumper, but, you know, correct. You know, Marcus of Queensberry rule, knuckle delivery puncher. And I think it's going to be a really good fight. It's going to be a really good showdown. But, I mean, I've listened to different pundits. I've listened to Talk Sport. I've listened to all of them. Hatman Strikes, you name it, Paul Malignaggi, all of these guys, they got their opinion, and very interesting breakdowns, for and against. But I mean, it's not because Anthony Joshua is a second coming of Muhammad Ali or he's a reincarnation of Jack Johnson. Nothing of the sort. But he is a legitimate athlete and former champion. And I just think technically, Daniel is very much out of his depth. Dubois is very much out of his depth. And I can see him getting beaten in a variety of ways, where I can only see him winning the fight one way, is roughing up, using his, I wouldn't say boxing IQ, but I'd say using his head. Definitely using his head. He's been using his head in his last few fights pretty well. And I think that's the only way he can win, landing a big shot, pummeling, clubbing, which is possible. However, I do believe that AJ could outpoint him just by giving him a boxing lesson on the outside if his tactics go well. I do think he could even frustrate him and keep him at the end of a jab, get him to overcommit and take him out with the big punches. Or I think he could even take the strategy of meeting him in the middle of the ring and trying to push him back, because there's arguments to say, when have you seen Daniel Dubois win a fight on points on the back foot, or box for any considerable amount of time on the back foot? He hasn't got particularly good balance, but he does throw hard punches. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But I anticipate, coming back to that point about the big question of, is Daniel Dubois a quitter? He's quit twice. He quit against Joe Joyce, he quit against Usyk, but since then he's exercised the demons. I think there is something very specifically different about those victories, worthy as they were. He was always in those fights that he's won. That they were like when he was getting hit by the Philip Ergovich, right? He was able to land himself or have some kind of success. He wasn't technically dominated. It was just that he had taken some hard punches. He was under fire and he fired back. And likewise in the Big Baby Miller fight, Big Baby was pressuring him. He was applying the pressure, closing down the ring and not really giving him much space to operate in. But the boss was always able to land. If AJ has a few good rounds when he's using some stiff punches and is defensively responsible, I wouldn't be surprised to see those demons arise within Daniel's game again, and for him to retreat into his shell and at some point take a knee. I think he's actually going to get knocked out. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think he's going to get, he's going to get done. However, I wouldn't be surprised if he quits or doesn't come out of his corner. If he's been frustrated, if he isn't having success and he's been dominated for a few rounds. I don't think those ghosts, I don't think they go like that. I think they're alive and well. But only time will tell. There's an amazing card, so we're going to revisit that as well. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the undercard as well in our next video after the weigh-in. We're going to discuss the weigh-in, the psychology of the weigh-in, how the fighters look. But so far, both parties have been talking a good one. And they've both been in fine form. It's a battle of the trainers. And we'll have to see which trainer has the best strategy, not just the best fighter, but when the going gets tough, who's able to impact their fighter in terms of technique and instruction. I think punching power wise, it's a relatively equal matchup. In terms of strength, I think there's a level of comparison in terms of aggression, etc. I think that this is where the fight is quite even. But in terms of boxing pedigree and skill, I don't think it's close. And in terms of big fight experience on the big stage at world title level, no, there is no comparison. Daniel Dubois hasn't had a world title fight. So, yeah, he's a world champion, but you make sense of that. But this could be his coming out party. No diddy, no pun intended. But coming out as in, if he is able to, as he would say, slay the king, if he becomes a king slayer, then I think this would really launch his career and he would have to be recognized and respected as a legitimate IBF champion, regardless of him being granted the title after Alexander Usyk was stripped, I think he would be a deserving champion. So we'll have to just watch this space and we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to coming back after the weigh-in and analysing the body language, the eye contact, the whole psychological aspect, because boxing is a very mental sport. They've done all the road work, they've done the pads, they've done the strength and conditioning and the shadow boxing and the sparring, all those sparring stories that they spoke about when Danny was supposed to have stretched AJ out in sparring or unbuckled him with a left hook or whatever the case may be, but all these stories about what he had done to AJ in sparring. But I actually find it fascinating that when they was face to face in the gloves are off type of promo, when they was able to have a conversation and AJ actually asked him, and what was it that happened in sparring? What was it that you said that happened in sparring? And it was like, yeah, that was a long time ago. Don't really matter. I don't really want to talk about it. It did look a little bit suspicious, like, you had been dining out on the man's name, using his name, rinsing out his name for promo, and it was basically an even extreme exaggeration or just a load of baloney, because he couldn't really look him in his face and say what had happened. And if he did do all those things that had been claimed by himself and his promoter Frank Warren, then I think he'd have been happy to tell the man to his face what had happened and given him a reminder. But the fact that he kind of went into his shell, it didn't bode well. It didn't bode well as in it was reality. But sparring anyway. Sparring isn't the whole story. Sparring, and you don't win titles for sparring. You win titles for performing under the lights. And anybody that knows anything about boxing, that's ever trained as a boxer at a professional or amateur level or in any kind of capacity where you've actually had fights, you would know 100% that there are guys in the gymnasium that can perform in the gymnasium, and with no exaggeration, if somebody world title or British title or European title level comes in the gym, they could be handled in a sparring session by somebody who doesn't have that kind of credential or record, but under the big lights, it would be a totally different thing. There are many gymnasium fighters. There are many there's many gym stories, and we call it gym wars and sparring wars. And that's all they are, is stories, and that's what it's supposed to say, because it's basically a practice session. So there's nothing to really hold on to too much. But yeah, look forward to seeing you soon after the weigh-in. We're going to drop one from the Middle East. Till next time, peace.